Good morning, Nacogdoches, and welcome to our Easter at the Coliseum, the 21-day devotion countdown. My name is Pastor Noel, and today is day 13, Saturday, March the 31st. I invite you today to take some time and read Matthew 20, verses 1 through 19, and then turn over to our devotion page and walk with us through our 3-2-1 Easter countdown. And that'll help you to study God's Word and to pray with us. Now, let me just give a brief overview of what you're going to read today. This passage is going to begin with a parable about the vineyard workers. It's an interesting parable, perhaps the most interesting parable that Jesus tells because it has an interesting twist. There is a landowner and he needs some people to work his fields, and so he goes out and he hires some people. He promises to pay them a fair day's wage, and so they're happy for the work, and they begin to work. Well, a little later in the day, he goes and hires some more, and he says, just trust me, come and work, I'll pay you what is fair, and then some more, and then some more, and then some of these people that he hires, they just come in and work for an hour, because he hires them in late afternoon, and once they get there, they work a little bit, and then they're done. So the landowner then lines up all of the workers. The one at the front of the line was the one who worked the least. And then the one at the back of the line, those are those that had worked all day. So the landowner gave the person at the front of the line, he would have been shocked by this, gave him a full day's wage, even though he had only worked 1 hour. And in fact, as the people walked up in line, he gave everybody 1 full day's wage. Well, the people in the back of the line who had worked many, many more hours than the ones in the front, they complained. This isn't fair. And, the landowner said, it is fair because this is what I told you I would pay you, and this is what I'm paying you. What I paid somebody else is really, that's just an expression of my generosity. And you can't, there's no matter, there's no issue of fairness here. And so he tells that parable. It's an interesting parable. I'll say more about it in a moment. Well, after the parable, in the passage we read today, we see that Jesus predicts his own death. Matthew 20, verse 19, they will hand him over to the Gentiles to be mocked, flogged, and crucified, and on the third day he will be raised. You know, we're 1 week away from Easter, from our celebration of the resurrection of Christ. I hope you're praying for that now, and I hope you're praying for our Easter at the Coliseum celebration, community celebration. Now, as I did my devotional study on this passage, I'll tell you what stood out to me most. It's just the clear picture of the grace of God, the amazing grace of God that we see in this parable. So let me read a couple of verses. This is near the end of the parable, after the landowner has paid everybody 1 day's wage. Verse 12, we see some of the complaint. Those that had worked longer said, these last men put in 1 hour, and you made them equal to us who bore the burden of the day's work and the burning heat. So that was their complaint. And then verse 15 is the landowner's response. He says, don't I have the right to do what I want with what is mine? Are you jealous because I am generous? Now, a lot of people don't like this parable because we want everything to be fair. But if God were just fair, not a single person would ever be saved. If God were fair, we would have to bear the penalty for our own sins, and we would be hopelessly separated from God. Thankfully, God's not fair. And what this parable highlights is that what God has done for me is more about who God is than who I am. It's not God's blessing for me is, and by the way, we're all represented by the people who worked 1 hour. God's God's blessing, God's forgiveness for me is not based on how hard I've worked or how much I deserve it. It's just based on the generosity of God. God's grace is amazing. And I hope you are just amazed all over again when you read this parable today about God's grace. And I hope this has been an encouragement to you, and I hope to see you here tomorrow.